Okay, so you know Java 8, right?
Yeah, I know Java 8.
Okay, so what are the features you have worked on with Java 8?
Yeah, I have worked with various features like Lambda expression, functional interface, and in functional interface we have default and static. Then stream APIs are there, optional class is there, then datetime API is there. So yeah,
Okay, okay. So I'm giving you one scenario. You let me know what will be the solution for that. Okay?
yeah, okay,
Okay, let's say we have this array and we have duplicates in it, right? So we have, let's say, apple, banana, orange, and again we have apple, banana. So we have duplicates. All right. Now we want to remove these duplicates. Okay. So we want only the unique strings from this array list. So how will you do that? Can you tell me the syntax of it?
yeah. So if we have duplicates item, then first of all we will say arrays.as list, and then we can gather that to the list of string, and then this string will be we can stream this string, and then we can distinct it actually. So once we do distinct, so it will take only unique strings from the list of string. So yeah, we will say distinct, and then dot collect, and then again further we can use collectors dot toList, and we can gather this unique string. So yeah, that is how we can fetch the unique string from this array list.
Okay, okay. Okay, now I have a different question. So suppose we have arrays.asList, right? And that we are getting as list. Okay, we have arrays.asList and that is as a list. And then this list dot stream we do, right? So suppose if we do list dot stream dot for each, okay, and if we do only list dot for each, are you getting me?
Yeah, so you mean that suppose we have the list, and then that list when we are doing list dot for each, and when we are doing list dot stream dot for each.
Yes, correct. So what will be the difference between these two scenarios? So what is different?
Yeah, so basically whenever we apply for each on stream, then it behaves differently, and whenever we apply directly for each, so that is basically we are applying for each on collection interface itself. Okay, so whenever we are doing stream dot for each, so that is the basically the part of stream API. Okay, and when we say like that collection dot for each, so that basically executes sequentially. Okay, but whenever we have stream dot for each, so that can also work parallelly as well. Okay, so that is the main difference. So yeah, so the basically the main difference is that whenever we are using stream dot for each, so I mean Then order of execution is not guaranteed, and that also supports parallel stream. But whenever we are using directly that collections dot for each. In that case, the order of iteration will be like sequentially. Yeah,
Okay. Okay, so what is the difference between map and flat map in Java 8?
yeah. Map is basically whenever we want to transform the data, so then we use map. Okay, and filter is like something when we filter like out of 10 items, it will filter out to it can be maximum that many of items, or it can be reduced also. But map is like it will always be the same number of items whatever was the input. Okay, so it just convert the input objects. Okay, for example, if we have, let's say, 1 to 10 number, and if you want to do the square of each number, so it will be like 1 to 10 only. I mean, that many number of numbers, but it will be just the square of that. So that's basically is the map. And flat map basically transforms each element into multiple elements. Suppose we have nested objects kind of structure, a kind of list of list, and if we want to see the all of the element on the top itself, so in that case we can go for the flat map.
Okay, can we use optional as a method parameter?
As a method parameter, uh, maybe yes, we can use, but I have never seen it anywhere, so most likely, yeah, we can use, I think. Yeah.
Okay, but do you think is this a good practice?
No, it's not a good practice to pass optional as a method parameter, because whenever we are going to pass optional as a method parameter, then inside that also we will have to again whatever the parameter is coming. So for that also we will have to consume as a optional, maybe optional dot off, and then we can consume that parameter. So I think that will be kind of extra wrapping of the uh, existing object. So the idea of using optional is like to remove the boilerplate code, but here I think we are introducing the additional codes. So I think that's the reason why it is not a good practice. So mostly, I mean, I have seen, or mostly we use it as a return type only. Yeah.
Okay, okay. Okay, one more question. So can we use this inside the lambda expression?
Yeah, we can use this inside the lambda expression, but it little bit it behaves different compared to the other classes. So whenever we are using, let's say we have class, any class, let's say, and then there we are using name, string name equal to, let's say, some abc string, and then suppose we have a method, let's say some print name, and there if we are using this dot name, so that will print basically abc, so that method. So basically in a lambda expression, this refers to the enclosing instance of the class where the lambda expression is defined. Unlike the anonymous inner class, a lambda does not create a new instance, so this behaves as expected. Okay, so this dot name inside the lambda refers to the instance of the outer. So yeah.
Okay, so what is the significance of equals and hash code method? Can you explain?
Yeah, equals and hash code method in Java, like that is the used for the object comparison, and efficient storage in the collection like hash map and hash set. So the equals method is used to determine whether two objects are logically equal. So by default, its implementation in the object class simply compares memory addresses. So basically, two objects with the same data but different memory locations would be considered unequal. Okay, so to compare the objects based on their actual content, I mean the equals method must be overridden to check if the field values instead of reference. Okay, so the hash code method on the other hand that returns an integer that represents an object's hash code. Okay, so that hash code is basically the hash based collection for the fast lookup that is used. Okay, so by default hash code returns a unique value based on the memory address, but when overriding equals, it is essential to also override hash code so that equals object produces the same hash code. Okay, so the relationship between these methods and is I mean very much important, because if two objects are considered equal by equals, then they must also return the same hash code. Okay, so if hash code is not consistent with equals, an object may not be found in the hash based collection even if they logically equal. Okay, so the correct way to implement both methods ensures that the object behave predictably in data structure, preventing duplication issues and enabling efficient lookup operations. Okay, yeah, so yeah.
Okay, suppose we divide a number 1.0 divided by 0.0. Okay, so what will be the output?
1.0 divided by 0.0, it it should be exception. It should throw exception actually.
Okay, which exception it will throw?
I think it will throw arithmetic exception.
Okay. Okay, what is singleton design pattern?
Yeah, single design pattern is basically it. Whenever we design this pattern, then it will have only one instance. So every time we create the object out of it, so it will return only one that same instance.
Okay, so how will you design that? Can you tell me in a code?
Yeah, so for that we check the if the instance is null. So suppose we have a class singleton, then there first of all we create an instance, private static instance basically, private static, let's say singleton instance, and then we create a private constructor, and then we can create the static method to access the instance, and inside that static method again we will have the check, the instance check we will be doing. If that is null, then only we will do the initialization, that instance equal to new singleton. Okay, and then we will have the return instance, so then only we will allow the object to be created. So yeah, so these are the steps we should follow for singleton design pattern.
Okay, what is the difference between iterator and list iterator?
Iterator and list iterator.
Yes.
Yeah, iterator is, we can say it is the universal iterator technique. So we can iterate anything using iterator. Either it is a set, list, or anything. But list iterator is only used for the list. So that is one thing. And then the another thing is that iterator is only forward direction, List director iterator is can go both forward and backward. Okay, so uh, it has mostly read and remove in case of iterator, and in case of list iterator we have read, remove, replace. Okay. Yeah, so basically these are the differences are there. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, what is serialization and where usually we use that?
Yes, serialization is a like it is a process of converting an object into byte stream. Okay, so uh, the whatever object suppose we have to transfer from one state, I mean from one place to another place. So we use serialization, and that we apply basically on the part of that object, maybe maybe on some specific property of that object. So yeah, so that is what serialization. So for example, we have the any bean class or persistent class. So in the object we have multiple properties. So suppose the password we don't want, or any other property we don't want to be serialized, means we don't want them to be convert to the byte stream. So we can write at the rate of serialized annotation we can write use on top of that properties, and that won't be byte stream. So while deserialization, its value will be null, basically. I mean, its default value will be assigned for that property. Okay. So we also use this between the communication between the two systems. Like say that is the like whenever we use web services like SOAP and all, then we use serialization to transmit the objects between the different machines or JVMs. So that is also one scenario where we use serialization. Also, in the caching system, also we can use serialization. So whenever we need to frequently access the same data, we can serialize the object and store them into memory on the disk. So that is also one thing. And then in message queues and serialization frameworks also we use it. So yeah, so these are the various places we can use it.
Okay, okay. Okay, one more question. So, can you override the private method in Java?
Override, no, we cannot. So we cannot override the private method in Java. So private method is not visible in any subclass basically. So I mean that's the obvious reason we cannot override it. However, we can declare a method in a subclass with the same name and parameter, but this would be like we say like method hiding, but we don't say it as overriding. Yeah.
Okay, so can we use double equal to compare strings? Like, suppose we have double equal to and we want to compare two string objects. So, can we do that?
Uh, we can do that, but basically this comparison will compare the references, like memory address it will compare. It won't compare the content of it basically. So normally we don't do that because usually in case of a string we compare the content only, not the reference or the memory address. So yeah, it is not recommended, but we can do that.
Okay. Okay, so what is the difference between array list and linked list?
Yeah, array list, like the underlying structure is dynamic array for array list, and linked list is like underlying structure is the doubly linked list. Okay, so array list it provides a faster access to elements by index, but inserting and removing normally not recommended in this case. But in linked list, it provides faster insertion and removal, but the access will be slower. So linked list, why faster insertion will be there? Because we have the nodes connected with each other, So the link can we can just break it, and we can simply insert the new node, and further we can reassign the links to the nodes. So easily we can insert the data, but yeah, the when we are trying to iterate or getting the index, or yeah, so those things will be like kind of slower in case of linked list. Yeah.
Okay, what is the difference between a string builder and a string buffer?
Yeah, string builder and a string buffer. Uh, I mean, string builder is faster than a string buffer because it is not synchronized. So that makes it suitable for single-threaded environments, or suitable or situations when thread safety is not a concern. And string buffer is thread safe because its methods are synchronized, and string builder in case where thread safety is not priority, so in that case we can use string builder.
Okay, and can we make constructor as private?
Yeah, constructor can be private. So a private constructor is often used, like as I said earlier, in singleton design pattern. So to prevent the other classes to directly create the instance of this class, so we can use a private constructor. The class itself controls the creation of the single instance. So I mean, from the outside, we cannot create it. So yeah.
Okay, coming to Spring Boot, what is the difference between at the rate of component, repository, and service?
Yeah, all these annotations are the part of component only. So, add component is like that is the generic stereotype annotation we can say. So, whenever any class is marked as add component, then bean is created, but it does not make any specific role. Okay, so it is like kind of just like general stereotype you can say. Okay, now coming to add repository, so basically that is we use at the DOL layer. So whenever we have to get, or we have to access, or we have to connect to the database, so repository is the one which we use. So in that class, we can use this annotation at the rate of repository. So that provides automatic exception translation. So basically, whenever any SQL exception or any kind of exception is coming, so then database related exception is converted into a Spring Data Access exception. Okay, and then coming to add service, so that annotation is used for the service layer. So this service layer basically contains the business logic. Basically, it does not add any extra logic or any extra functionality like add repository, but it helps indicating that the class is uh, I mean being used for the handling the business logic. So yeah, so it is kind of the marker also we can say. So just to let the user know. So yeah, so this is what is the difference between these.
Okay, okay. And what is the difference between REST controller and controller?
Yeah, both we use in Spring MVC. So mostly like add controller we use in Spring MVC, and the combination, the rest controller is kind of the combination of at the rate of controller and at the rate of response body. So that is what is the at the rate of rest controller. So whenever we have suppose JSP and all we are using, or MVC kind of structure we are using. So model view return if we are planning, in that case normally we use add controller. But whenever suppose if we are using JSON kind of a structure, let's say, so in that case we use usually at the rate of REST controller. So yeah, so basically at REST controller is a specialized version of at controller. So it combines at controller and at response body, and it is designed for basically REST APIs to, and it automatically serializes return value into JSON or XML.
Okay, so what will happen if there are multiple beans of same type in a Spring Boot?
Yeah, if multiple bean of same type exist in a Spring container and an auto-add field requires an instance of that type, at that point of time, basically Spring throws exception, and I think that is no unique bean definition exception. So because it does not know which bean to inject. So yeah, so that exception is I mean thrown by the Spring container.
But how can we resolve this?
Yeah, we can resolve this using two ways. So one is using the at the rate of primary annotation, or we can use at the rate of qualifier. So at primary, basically that basically marks one bean as default choice whenever we have multiple bean is there, like the scenario you said. And the second way is also like at qualifier is there. So in the case of at qualifier, we explicitly specify the bean like which has to be injected. So that is the another way.
Okay, so whenever you write the POM file in Spring Boot, so what is Spring Boot starter parent?
Yeah, that is basically used to remove the all kind of boilerplate codes for the dependencies. So if we are not using this Spring Boot starter parent, so in that case we need to specify the version of each dependency, whatever we are using. So so basically it sets the default version for the commonly used dependencies. So that is one thing, and then it includes default. It includes useful Maven plugins like Spring Boot Maven plugin and all. So yeah, so that is what is the use of this.
So in Spring Data JPA, what is the difference between save and flush?
Yeah, both save and flush are used to persist the data or like save the data, but they are different. So in case of save, so that saves the entity without immediately committing the transaction. Okay, so that is the save, and save and flush basically that saves the entity, but immediately flushes the changes to databases. So that is useful when we need the changes to be available in the same transaction. So in that case we use save and flush. Otherwise whenever the changes are flushed when the transactions completes, so then we can use save.
Okay, you know lazy loading in Spring Boot?
Yeah, lazy loading, we can say that is a technique where objects are not loaded from the database until they are accessed. So in Spring Boot, lazy loading basically helps in optimizing the performance by reducing the unnecessary data retrieval. So we always may not want to retrieve the data all the time. Okay, so so let's say we have any entity. Let's say order is one entity class is there, and we have the list of items in that. Okay, and we have the getters and setters for that. Okay, so whenever we are going to do get items explicitly, then only the whole data will be loaded. Otherwise by default the data will not be there into the memory. So that is what is the lazy loading.
Okay, okay. Okay, what is the use of at the rate of transactional annotation?
Yeah, transactional annotation is basically that creates the transaction before executing the method. Okay, so if the method completes successfully, then the transaction is completed. So if an exception occurs, then transaction is rolled back automatically. So that is what the use of a transactional.
You know profile? So what is profile annotation in a Spring Boot?
Yeah, profile is used to define different configurations for different environments. Like suppose we have multiple environments like dev, test, production, right? So we can use add data profile, and there we can give like dev. Okay, so at that point of time only, I mean, if we want to activate dev, then in application properties or YAML file, we can give Spring profile active equal to dev. So the dev profile will be activated. So yeah, so that is what is the profile.
Okay, so in microservices, what happens if one microservice fails? So how do you handle the failures of the microservices?
Yeah, microservices, if it is failing means there are various ways. So for example, we have a circuit breaker design pattern. So that basically uh, underlying to that we can use heuristic. So it detects the failure and stops sending the request to the failed service temporarily. So that is there. Then we have retry mechanism is there. So if request fails, then automatically it retries after a short delay. So that is one thing. And then we also have fallback mechanism. So if suppose any service fails, so that returns the default response instead of an error. Okay, so it can simply say that okay, the service is currently down or something. I mean, if something hardcoded we can say. So yeah, so these are the ways we can handle the failures.
Okay, so in microservices, have you ever worked with versioning of that?
Versioning. Uh, yeah, while URL preparation, we have worked on it. So for example, suppose we have to fetch the order. So in the URL we say like API, then forward slash v1 orders, and in next version sometimes we say like API forward slash v2 orders. So yeah, so that kind of thing we have done. And also in headers also we have done versioning, like if suppose application like we accept, right? So accept application dot orders, then v1 plus JSON. So there also we can use that way. So in that part we have used.
What are the features of API gateway and why it is used in microservices?
Yeah, API gateway is like we can say single entry point for all the client requests. So it basically handles the like various things like authentication and authorization. So any kind of JWT or auth request, I mean, we are trying to use, then that part is done in this API gateway. And then rate limiting is also like we can do. So suppose any service is getting used like more frequently and more so, and we don't want that to be more used, or some limit we can basically add. And then load balancing also done there. And then service discovery. So whenever like the microservice is trying to call another microservice, so in that case this so dynamic IP address is generated, and then uh, that basically service is I mean being hit by the API gateway. So yeah,
Okay. So which API gateway you have used?
yeah, I have used Spring Cloud API gateway.
Okay, okay. Okay, so to monitor the microservices, what are the ways you are using?
Yeah, to monitor microservices, so for centralized logging we are using like ELK stack and all. So like Elasticsearch, Logstash and Kibana. So that we are using for that. And then for distributed tracing we are using Zipkin. And then we are using Actuator for health checks and all. Yeah. So and also for the metrics and alerts, we are using Prometheus. So yeah, so these are the tools we are using.
So in SQL, what is the difference between SQL and NoSQL databases?
Yeah, SQL is basically a structured query language. So it is relational, and NoSQL is non-relational databases. So we have SQL databases like MySQL, Postgres, SQL, Oracle, and all. And NoSQL, we have MongoDB, Cassandra. So yeah, so these are the things are there.
Okay, what all differences are there?
Yeah, so SQL database that uses table, rows, and columns, and NoSQL we use something called document, and whenever we have to uh, I mean do the relational kind of stuffs like join transactions and all, in that case we go for the SQL databases. And in NoSQL, so mostly we use whenever the we application is the highly scalable and performance and flexibility we want, so in that case we go for the NoSQL. So yeah.
Okay, okay.